Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pujols, and I am your host, as brought to you by iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, guys. I am glad to have you back with me. Had some technical difficulties earlier, but we are going to move past that now. And now that we are here together, guys, I just want to reiterate a couple of things real quick before we dive on deep into the show. First things first, we're going to do things a little backwards today. We're going to discuss the draft later, and we're gonna save that for last because that's the kind of meat and potatoes of the show for today. We're gonna keep it short with what's going on in baseball. Unfortunately, our team isn't playing very well at the moment, and so I'm going to go ahead and shed some light on that really quickly. We're going to move over to the NBA, the NHL. We'll wrap it up with a few thoughts about college football from the two biggest players that were drafted from both FSU and the University of Florida, our Gators. And then we'll wrap it up with what's going on with We'll wrap it up in what's going on with the world of sports as far as the draft is concerned, especially since this was a big draft year. This was actually one of the most electrifying drafts we've had in recent memory. So many great players. Actually, so many great players went undrafted. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that as well. So first things first, guys, shout out to everybody who got back into the show. I appreciate you guys for having patience with me, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep it rocking for you, and we're going to get you done and out of the way on time, okay, guys? So first things first, though, like I said, I was going to touch on what's going on with baseball. Unfortunately, the Rays are playing horrific baseball. It's really one of those things where you look at a team's success the year before and you look at the team now and you see there was something clearly that changed. And for this team, unfortunately, we lost some really important pieces as far as pitching goes, and then obviously we had some off the mound issues that really took a toll on this team, both emotionally and roster wise. I think that's something that when you see it, you realize just how hard it is to deal with as a team, and I think that our Rays are dealing with that now. The two ways that we can see this is, one, this team is sub 500 for the first time in a while, actually, a very long time, may I say, a couple of years almost, actually, because last year they weren't lower than 500 at all. They didn't touch it. They weren't even close to it. And that's one of those things where, like I said, when you look at the success that the team had last year versus what's going on now, you realize that losing the players that we lost, especially with the legal issues that we were facing, was one of those things that really, really became a detriment to this team. And I think that this team is kind of wearing it a little bit. I think they've tried to move on, but it's hard to look at the success you had the year before and see how drastically it's changed this early on and say, man, that's frustrating. It's ever more so evident in getting swept by the Chicago White Sox, one of the worst teams in the league by far. This team had 3 wins going into this series, and now they've been able to double their wins total in just one series. So that's one of those things that, like I said, you look at, you see the frustration behind it, and you realize, man, I don't know what happened, but something bad happened. And from Tampa, it looks like a train wreck. I would describe it as a train wreck. And that's that. That's just how we're going to look at it, guys. Not really going to rub any details into the mix. It is what it is. This team is just in a very bad place right now, and they're going to have to work to get out of it, period, the end. And that's all I have to say about the Tampa Bay Rays for this week, guys. Let's move on over into the NBA. There's a little bit more exciting news going on there. The Heat right now, they were able to stay alive in Game 2, but unfortunately they lost Game 3 to the Celtics. 104-84 be the score of that ball game there. Next game is going to be tomorrow at 7:30 p.m., just in case you're wanting to watch some Heat basketball. I don't know what to tell you. Jimmy Butler's hurt, and you can see it. Obviously, there's a lot of faith in this team. Jimmy has a lot of faith in this team. I have a lot of faith in this team. Eric does, in the city of Miami. The whole state of Florida realistically does. But, you start asking the question, at what time does this team start to the wear and tear catch up to them? And missing somebody like Jimmy Butler and having somebody try to play as hard as Bam Adebayo is playing, it's one of those things where it's either going to be a struggle to the end in which they can come out on top, or it's just not going to get any better for them, especially now that we're moving into Game 4. If the Celtics were to take a 3-1 commanding lead, I just don't see exactly what the Heat would be able to do to bounce back from that, and that's just the unfortunate truth about what's going on there. Got a lot of faith in this team, like I said before, but injuries are insurmountable, and it's one of those things that we're starting to see the power creep from that injury, or injuries, I should say, this team has suffered, especially now that Jimmy Butler is now out. So the next game, like I said, tomorrow, 7:30 p.m., just in case you want to check this game out, that's going to be the time and place to do so. I'll be watching the first 30 minutes of it. I would say that after that, I'll be flipping back and forth because Monday Night Raw will be on, so I'll be watching that as well, which I'm excited for. T-Raw, the entire world outside of Massachusetts is counting on the Heat. Yeah, it's one of those things where you realize this has been one of the teams that's been able to take down the Celtics in the past. And when that team starts to not be that team anymore and you start having to look somewhere else, you realize you're not really sure if there's any other team in the East right now that can beat the Celtics. I'm going to say it like this. The Celtics, they're a very gifted team, and at times they're a very helped team. And when I say helped, I mean that in the same way that it sounds. I've seen this team get the better end of some calls, and we see that a lot, right, in sports and basketball and in general. But it's one of those things where when you watch it for real, you realize if you're going to beat the Celtics, you kind of have to beat the brakes off the Celtics, right? Like, you can't just beat the Celtics by a point. They're never going to let that happen, right? And so you realize you're going to have to go out there, you're going to dominate. You know, and when you look at the East, how riddled the East is with injuries, I'm actually currently watching the Milwaukee Bucks game versus the Indiana Pacers. Guys, the Indiana Pacers are winning 114-98, okay? And I'm not saying that to say that the 114 to 101 now. But I'm not saying that because Milwaukee's bad. I'm saying that because, well, both of their star players are injured at the moment and are not playing. So it becomes a harder test of time to defeat a Celtics team when you realize, dang, man, the only team that is going to be able to do it right now is probably Indiana. I mean, you got Indiana, New York could also do it as well, but who's going to play who next, right? So, yeah, the world is definitely counting on the Heat, and if not the Heat, like I said, whoever they play next, whether it be New York or the Indiana Pacers. Or the Magic or the Cavs, whoever come out of that game. But that series is tied, and that's actually where we're headed to next with the Magic. This team has been reborn. It's almost like if you guys ever seen the show called Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yugi uses the spell card Monster Reborn, and then he brings back his Dark Magician. It's kind of like that. I know that's a nerdy reference, guys, but for those of you who know, you know. It's a game changer whenever that happens, right? Whenever he goes into his bag and he activates that card, good things are usually following that. And that's one of those things where you realize, hey, the Magic have something going on here. And like I said before, and I've said this a few times, I thought that this team was about 2 years off last year from finding this kind of success. And if you guys go back and you listen to the show, then you know. But realistically, it's very impressive to see, and it starts with Banchero, okay? This kid is gifted, all right? Nobody's talking about this kid, and they need to. T-Rod, you get it. You know what I'm talking about, big dog. But that's really what the case is, right? It's almost like it's like when you get your star back and you rejuvenate, you're like, oh, man, I can do something with this. You see what I'm saying? And that's a really big deal. And for the Magic, like I said, they've been able to stay, for the most part, healthy. They're very young, so they've got time. If they've got longevity on their side, they just got to keep going. They literally just got to keep going. 1 foot in front of the other, head down, and they're going to be fine. And like I said, Banchero's the leader that they've been waiting for. This is the guy that, and I hate to say it like this, and I don't mean no disrespect to Aaron Gordon. This is who Aaron Gordon thought he was going to be. Okay, with Orlando, that is, and I'm not saying that as a hater. Like I said, much love to him and out for in there with Denver. I'm sorry, guys, couldn't English for a second. Much love out there for him in Denver. Find the success that he's been able to find. But let's be clear, there's a reason why he's not a starter. All right, and I'm not saying that because he's not starting caliber. I'm saying that because Banchero has this team believing. All right, and it's through his play. It's through his play. The kid just shows up and balls. There's no excuses. There's no complaining. There's no this guy did that guy did this. It's just old-fashioned going out there and balling. All right? Like the way the people ball in your city after like most kids go home and then the lights go down, you see the street lights come on, you see those guys still out there balling. That's what I'm talking about. He's on that level. So, can't complain with what we're seeing from the Magic. Again, they've been able to tie the series up, been neck and neck with the Cavs. They keep swapping games, but the score of that last game was 112-89, and what a smack in the face that was to the Cleveland Cavaliers featuring the Spider and other friends. But this Magic team not ended up at 2-2. This team is not a joke. They're not to be played with. Yes, when Merrick brought back Dwayne Dragon Raw, whew, man, let me tell you, and he was at full life points too. That's a lot of damage. But yes, guys, that's basically what the Orlando's Magic are dealing with right now. A lot of damage, and that's what they're doing. They're putting forth a whole bunch of damage on offense. Like I've said this before as well. The objective in basketball is score over 100 points and keep the other team from scoring 100 points. In the NFL, it's 20 points, right? In baseball, it's somewhere around 4 or 5 runs. And then, obviously, in hockey, you usually want to get around 3 or above 3 and try to keep the team away from 3, right? So, every sport kind of has that clear angle that, hey, this is what we want to aim for. If we can do this, then we'll be able to do that. Cause and effect, right, guys? We'll talk about the Panthers. The Panthers kind of utilized that concept throughout the season, doing a good job at keeping teams at around 2 goals per game. okay? And obviously, moving forward, they were usually always able to outscore the other team, and you saw what it led to, a top 5 team, if not the best team in all of hockey at the time, at the end of the season. The way that they were playing was tremendous, okay? And like I said, we'll talk about that in a second, but real quick, to get you guys caught up on what's going to be in the next game. Unfortunately, the time is still be determined, but the next game will be Tuesday, April 30th. Again, we're not sure exactly what time this is going to take, and I think that's because they're wanting to see who's going to extend and who's not going to extend as far as the playoffs are concerned. Obviously, the Lakers are still facing elimination, being down 3-1, but they're not the only team. So we'll see what happens moving forward, like I said, but odds are it's going to be a late game probably. I think it's going to be a late game. And I'm not saying that because of other things. I just think it's going to be a late game. I'd put that as the late game, to be honest with you. But that's me personally. So, yeah, that's what's going on there in the world of basketball. We talked about the Rays a little bit. And then next, we're going to go ahead and talk about the NHL. Then we'll get into our first break, and then we'll bounce back, and we'll talk all football the rest of the way through, guys. As far as the NHL is concerned, Panthers, Bolts, that's the playoffs implication that we have right now. We're going into Game 5. The Bolts are able to stay alive in Game 4. Marcus, I see you, brother. Quick shout out there. But yeah, the Bolts are able to stay alive here in Game 4. They win it by the score of 6-3. There's no doubt that Mikhail Sergachev's return was a big boost to the Bolts in that regard. I have to say that having him back has been monstrous for us as a puck club. It's something that we definitely needed. One of our best players. And the guy that you basically always want to have on the ice, right? At the end of the day, if he's not on the ice, it feels like bad things are happening with him on the ice. We got the first win in this really hard-fought series so far. And I told you guys before, this would probably be the best series that you watch. If the Bolts are able to win this very next game that's coming up tomorrow at 7 p.m., then my words will stand correct. And the test of time for that matter, because these are two teams in a state where people think that we shouldn't be playing hockey. But let me tell you, we're playing some of the best hockey over the last few years, guys. Don't let this year fool you. We've been playing some of the best hockey over the last few years, guys. Dad, thanks for that heads up. I appreciate it. I love you guys. Kisses to you and Mom, and hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of the show as well. Now then, back to the Bolts, though. Like I said, staying alive in Game 4, 6-3 victory there. Panthers lead the series 3-1. What can I say? Tomorrow is Game 5, 7 p.m. Bring your popcorn. Going to be a good game. I think that the Bolts get this W again. I think that Sergachev's return is not something you can kind of expect, especially when you look at the continuity that we now have on the ice. And you guys know I love that word continuity, because continuity means consistency, and usually consistency means victory, right? It doesn't really matter what sports you look at, you can kind of identify those things, and that's something we'll also talk about when we get into these draft prospects for our 3 teams here out of the state of Florida. But thank you for rocking with me here on Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name is Corey Pujols, and as always, this is brought to you and powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. When we get back, we'll talk all NFL and a little bit of what the 2 college prospects that got out of the first round from the University of Florida and the Florida State University. We'll dig into that, guys. Keep it locked here. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Well, what is up, Carolina Nation? This is John Felipe of the Carolina Cast, of course, the podcast of, by, and for the Carolinas, right here on IE Sports, your direct feed for all that is sports. And I'm reminding you to tune in Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern for the latest in Carolina sports, whether it's the Panthers that keep on pounding, the fly natures of the Hornets, the storming Hurricanes, the battle of the Blues with Duke and UNC, the fight of the Clemson Tigers, or the amazing atmosphere of any Carolina college. I'm talking App State, I'm talking ECU. I've got you covered. Once again, tune in for the Carolina Cast with me, John Felipe, Fridays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome to AZ Sports Daily. I'm your host, Kiernan Daly, bringing the heat to Arizona sports. There's no discrimination here. We're going to talk about every sports team, professional and college. The show is all about you, the listener. I'm here to entertain you. Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here? It's going to be fun, high energy. You may not agree with what I say. That's okay. Let me hear you. Let's talk about it. Join me every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on AZ Sports Daily. That's AZ Sports, D-A-L-E-Y, and at IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
You heard the man. It's your direct feed for all that is sports, and welcome back to Palm Tree Sports Radio. I am your host, Corey Pujols, and, you know, guys, this is why I love the sport of football. All right, you guys know I've kind of been itching to talk about this. I'm ready to talk about. We've got about 29 minutes to get into it, guys, and we're gonna dive all the way into it. So, first things first. Shout out to the University of Florida and FSU for both having players drafted in the first round. For reference, obviously, I am a Gator, guys. I bleed the blue and orange. That is my happy place. It's one of those places that I think about when I think about home. I think about Florida Gator football on a Sunday afternoon here in sunny Florida. I think about palm trees. I think about lemonade. I think about barbecue. Kind of the traditional things that you would experience here in Florida. Spanish food, the whole 9 yards, guys. And I'm not making this up because this is what we do. You know, as back to being a kid, it's what I remember. My dad can attest to this, but, you know, waking up Saturday morning, getting some lawn mowing done, you know, taking care of the yard, grandma's garden, whatever the case may be, work up a decent sweat, get in there, get a shower, get some grub, get some food, you know, a little lunch. Who knew what was on the menu, but whatever it was always going to be pretty good. And then you knew top of the noon, I would say, I don't say top of the noon, but high noon, I would say, it's time for some college football, you know. And in the background, we'd have the what was it called? College football game day going on, you know, having the guest picker come on and talk about those things and whatnot. And that's why I really want to address this, because I miss football, and I'm sure you guys do. Excuse me there for a second. I apologize. But for the two players that were selected out of the state of Florida, specifically from the University of Florida and from FSU, I'm going to rock with FSU first and say that Jarrett Verse was one of the players that I thought that would go higher. Obviously, LA got a steal with him at, 21 or something like that, I think it was. Hell of a pick for them. This guy is definitely a star. He's gonna be a guy that can come in and pretty much start right away. So they got themselves a really good piece in Jarrett Verse. As far as the Gators is concerned, Pretty Ricky. They want to call him Slick Ricky, but you know, I christened him Pretty Ricky 2 years ago. Number 1 for the Gators, Ricky Parcell. You know this guy, 19. There you go, T-Rob. Appreciate it, my man. But this guy, Ricky Parcell, I can't stress to you guys enough how good this guy is at the receiver position. For reference, I think that he is as good now as Adam Thielen was in his prime. For those of you who got to see prime Adam Thielen, the kid was just a monster on third downs. He was at one point one of the most reliable receivers in the league, and he was somebody that ran routes like he was a wizard out of Harry Potter. I have not watched Harry Potter. I've only read one of the books, but the reason why I say that is because he is a magician. Realistically speaking, this is a guy that seems undersized, maybe a little bit slower, but the play on the field translates a lot more than what you see stat-wise. This kid is a stud. Okay, so shout out to the 49ers. The Niners are my second favorite team. Have always been my second favorite team in the NFL. So I basically couldn't ask for much of a better match as far as this goes. Hopefully Brock Purdy can really get himself together and not perform as terribly as he did during this past Super Bowl. And hopefully Ricky can be a help in that regard. If not, any quarterback, my apologies, would be lucky to have this man as a receiver. And I'm going to stand on that, guys. I'm going to stand on that. Ricky was absolutely phenomenal here for the University of Florida as a Gator. And it's something that I look forward to seeing with him moving forward, especially with the 49ers. And he will find himself most likely in the starting role. I think he's good enough to do so, guys. Okay, so let's go from the bottom to the top here, all right, for the draft, guys. And I'm going to obviously buzz a little bit more about Tampa Bay, but that's because I have a lot more knowledge to offer from the Tampa Bay perspective. Nonetheless, what Miami and the Jags both did were pretty good. I give pretty much all of these teams high grades, guys. I would say that the Jaguars, they're in an area where I could give them an A for their ranking. Realistically, I could definitely give them an A. I would say they get an A minus. There's one thing that I thought that they could have done better, and that's draft a quarterback. What? Yeah, listen, here's the deal, guys. The Jacksonville Jaguars are in a real weird spot. Trevor Lawrence played decent the first half of the season last year, okay? And I'm going to say decent. He wasn't exactly a top 10 quarterback, but he wasn't a bottom 10 quarterback, okay? But here's what my problem is. He got injured. He thought he was healthy. I think we weren't. I think we think that he wasn't healthy when he came back, and I think that's really what the issue is facing Jacksonville. But then on the flip side of that, I look at quarterbacks who have played while they were injured, and guys, if y'all didn't know this, these are some of those quarterbacks. Donovan McNabb being one of them, Warren Moon being another one, Vince Young. Okay, there are some quarterbacks who have played injured and they still played tremendous, okay? And I'm not saying that that's supposed to be every quarterback, but what I am saying is if you're going to find yourself being successful, you may just very well have to do that. Trevor Lawrence did not do that last year, and after his second half of the year performance, I personally would have looked at one of those quarterbacks in the draft and said, okay, listen, Spencer Rattler's still here, let me get him. You never know. I mean, it could have been a move. It definitely could have been a move. But unfortunately, the Jacksonville Jaguars did not do that. As a result, I'm going to give them an A- just because they were able to make sure that they piled a lot of picks on for this year. And I feel like with the picks that they did make, that they did get some really solid players, starting with Brian Thomas Jr., okay? So that's where I'm going to say it started. I also believe that Mason Smith was a great choice for them out of LSU as well as Jordan Jefferson. I watch a lot of LSU football throughout the year. It's my favorite team in the SEC West, so that's going to be a team that I know a little bit more about than some of those other teams in the SEC West. And when I tell you that LSU does a good job developing their players, they've always been a stalwart as far as coaching is concerned, and that kind of shows itself with the amount of draft prospects and players that they send every year, year in and year out. LSU, you know, this year was no difference for them. They were able to play tremendous football. A lot of people think that they should have gone further. I agree. I think that they should have gone further. But one of the things that people don't understand is that I really feel like Jayden Daniels got away with a lot of what he got away with because he was in college. I'm not so sure if that's going to fly as much as it did in college now that he's in the pros. However, I feel like the rest of the team around him had a lot of untapped potential. Malik Nabers, I thought, was probably the best wide receiver in this draft. I personally think I would have drafted him as the number one receiver myself, and I believe that's what happened. So I think LSU kind of trickles down their skill level as you go through their ranks and their players, and I think that this was an example of utilizing a college to its utmost potential. I think that Tampa Bay also did that. We'll get into that in a second, but again, the Jags were clearly looking at LSU's talent, and they saw a lot of what they liked. They drafted 3 players from LSU, which was the most by any of the teams here in Florida, so that's something else to take into consideration. But surrounding them was also a pick, Jarrian Jones from FSU. Great pick here in the 4th round. Third round, my apologies. Great pick for them. That's a cornerback. They were going to need some help there on the outside as well, so I think that's a very solid pick for them. This is a guy that can come in and definitely compete for a starting job. Obviously, he has to try to stay healthy and, do his best, but as a rookie, but this is something that's absolutely doable. Another cornerback, Deontay Prince. They were going to need help on the outside. He comes from Mississippi, so they're paying attention to the South. They realize that there's a lot of skill down there as far as cornerbacks and defensive back safeties are concerned in the South. So good for them for eyeballing that. I think that's another solid pickup for them. Keelan Robinson, running back out of Texas, solid pick. This was a guy who actually did put some work in on the turf. I got to see him in the Red River rivalry against Oklahoma. That game just was star-studded as a whole. I think there's a lot of NFL talent on both sides of those teams, and a lot of guys that we're going to see come out and be successful. Definitely some Super Bowl winners that are going to come out of there. And I think that obviously Robinson is an example of that. Very proud of what Jacksonville was able to do in the draft, but from top to bottom, here you go. In their first round, they picked wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU. That was the number 2 wide receiver behind Malik Nabers, but also saw a lot of action, guys, at LSU. Saw a lot of action. You can't go wrong with either one of these receivers. Great choice by the Jaguars. Okay, Mason Smith goes in the 2nd round, defensive tackle, LSU, mentioned him earlier. Jarrian Jones, cornerback, FSU, in for the 3rd round. They had 2 4th rounders, 1 Javon Foster, that's an offensive line from the Zoo. Great offensive line there that they had in Missouri, by the way, for those of you who don't watch SEC college football. Jordan Jefferson being the other 4th round pick for them. That's defensive tackle out of LSU, mentioned him earlier. Big guy in the middle. He's definitely going to help shore up that defensive line that needs the help that they're going to be receiving from these draft prospects. Deontay Prince, again, we mentioned him, cornerback, Mississippi. Great pick for them, especially in the 5th. Also in the 5th was Keelan Robinson, the running back out of Texas. So 2 really great choices down there at the 5th. Like I said, there was a ton of talent here in this draft this year, and it was definitely noticeable if you watched college football last year, guys. All right, so moving on from there, they go Cam Little, kicker out of Arkansas. Yeah, no surprise there. They were going to need a kicker one way or another, and obviously, with this draft being so loaded on offense and in the cornerback and safety positions, it makes sense that they waited a little bit later to try and get their hands on a kicker, which is what they did. Miles Cole being the last draft pick in the 7th round. He's a defensive end out of Texas Tech. Big guy, pretty fast also. Something else for them to take into consideration with utilizing that line, putting that guy inside and out, could be very beneficial for this team, okay, guys? Just something for you guys to consider as far as the Jazz are concerned. With the Fins, I feel like the Fins, also because they had the least amount of draft picks, or I don't say least amount of draft picks, but I feel like they did the least with their draft picks. Now, they actually drafted some really good guys. It just goes to show the strength at which these 3 teams drafted. But I think the Fins getting Chop Robinson in the 1st round was good. He's not the best edge rusher that was out there in my opinion. And because of that, I think that it was good. I mean, that grade right there in rank 1 is probably a B+, just because there's the possibility you definitely could have gotten him in the 2nd round, especially with the way that you go back and look at how these teams were drafted. There were a lot of cornerbacks who went in the 2nd round, and you realize, okay, you know, maybe we could have gotten this guy in the 2nd. But with that being said, it doesn't really matter because they got the guy that they wanted, and they got it in a position that they needed to help fill, which was outside linebacker or edge rusher, okay? He comes out of Penn State. Huge Nittany Lion fan here. Love Penn State. Love what they have to offer up there. Congratulations to Chop Robinson on the 1st round draft pick over to the Fins. And with that being said, they now have Shaq Barrett and Chop Robinson on the same team. Look out, guys. That is a interesting looking edge rush that could potentially be dangerous, especially if those 2 players live up to the hype, guys. In the 2nd round, they go Patrick Paul, offensive tackle out of Houston. Big guy, big hands, got some good movement, gets low at the knees. One of those things, he just needs to make sure that he remains low at the knees, and as long as he continues to do that, he'll be able to be a very big help for this Miami offense, both in the passing game and in the run game, okay? Also a guy that could come out and probably start on day 1 as well. Don't be surprised if you do see him start. Skipping the 3rd round, they move into the 4th round. They go running back out of Tennessee, Jalen Wright, guys. This is very interesting. Yes, they did sign Kendall Fuller. That is exactly right, T-Raw. That is, at least that's what I saw. And they were looking at Odell Beckham Jr. So this was a team that was looking to add some star power and really just supplement in the draft. And that's what they did, which is why I give them the B- out of the group, right? So I go B+ for the Buccaneers, I go A- for the Jags, and then I go B- for the Fins. And that's because they did do a couple of things in the offseason to help improve these positions that they knew that they were weak in. And like I said, when you put yourself in positions to just worry about supplementing, it becomes a lot easier. That's when you know you already have a successful team. You're just trying to build upon it, right? And usually teams who do that find a lot of success the following year, guys. Look at Tampa Bay, for example. We got the GOAT, drafted very well that same year and the year before, to be completely honest with you. And as a result, that draft that we had with Tom Brady was just more about finding, players to shore up positions, which is more or less what you saw. You saw a couple of rookies on the defensive side of the ball. You saw a couple of rookies on the offensive side of the ball as far as receivers, tight ends are concerned, and things like of that. Tight end, offensive tackles. And we won a Super Bowl that year, all right? Look what the Rams did. The Rams did it the following year as well after getting Matthew Stafford. So, just some food for thought when it comes to that. But yeah, moving back over to the Fins, though, Jalen Wright is the 4th round draft pick, running back out of Tennessee. Saw this guy perform. He's actually a pretty good ball carrier. Definitely one of the top 10 ball carriers I had coming out in the draft. He's going to provide an extra bit of help, an extra layer, if you will, for the 2 stud running backs that they do already have. It's going to be one of those things where I can't wait to see how that pans out, but I think that he'll see some playing time, especially with the team and offense as dynamic as the Dolphins is. The 5th round goes to Muhammad Kamara, edge rusher out of Colorado State University. This was a guy that kind of stood out, but because he was over that Sun Belt area, that it becomes hard to identify how good this kid's really going to be in the future, and I think that's the reason why they were able to get him at the 5th. Still a great choice. Small town doesn't mean anything, or small college, doesn't mean anything. I look forward to seeing this guy perform well on Sundays. This is a guy that could come out and possibly find a starting job as well. Don't be surprised if you see him splitting time with Chop Robinson on the edge. All right, guys. Malik Washington, wide receiver, Virginia, is their 6th round pick. Malik Washington, big guy, big target. He's got to stay healthy. same old, same old. He has to do his best, and as long as he does that, he'll be successful, guys. 6th round, they had a secondary pick that goes to safety, Patrick McMorris. Again, safety out of Cali. I didn't watch much Cali football. I can't really give you an apt description of his skills, but California's a decent college. And it's a place where they've usually always had decent coaches. Look at some of the players they've produced over the past, and look at California as a state as a whole when producing, high level talent for the game of football. It's probably the best when it comes to the West. So just take that in consideration. I think this guy has the potential. But again, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on him, so we'll have to see what happens as he moves into the future. Taj Washington, wide receiver out of USC. That's kind of a steal in the 7th round, in my humble opinion, guys. There's no reason why he should have made it to the 7th, but when you realize that there weren't a lot of teams picking wide receiver, there were, but it's like they were getting 1 or 2 and they were done. And when you have a stacked receiving class like you had this year, obviously this wasn't like the 2013 receiving class, but still, nonetheless, a really good receiving a wide receiver class for this past year, and it shows and being able to get Taj Washington so late in the draft. That guy's going to be a really good receiver for them. Speedster. At the end of the day, he can do everything that you need him to do. So in the event that they don't get Odell Beckham Jr., it's okay. You guys got Taj Washington, and that's going to be a great step moving forward, guys. All right. So that's what's going on there for Miami, guys. They did really good. Like I said, they get a B- in my humble opinion. If they had maybe one more draft pick, or perhaps were a little bit more aggressive earlier in the draft, I could have seen them getting a higher pick or a higher ranking. My apologies as far as their picking is concerned. But for the team that sits in the middle of these two teams, the Buccaneers, they drafted very well. But here's the thing. I'm considering bumping them from a B+ to an A- just due to the fact that they're undrafted free agents. I'll talk about that in a second, okay? First things first, it's important to note that, in my humble opinion, this is just my humble opinion, guys, the Buccaneers have a top 2 GM in the league, and he's not number 2. All right? Just look at what he's done over the last few years, okay? Real quick. Drafts Mike Evans, okay? Drafts a ton of great players, but Mike Evans being the top one, of course. Tristan Wirfs, Yaya Diaby. There's so many I could just go on and on about. Antoine Winfield Jr., take your pick, all right? But then he goes out, he gets Tom Brady, right? I don't care what the knock was on Tom Brady. He won another Super Bowl with Tampa Bay. Argue with your mother, okay? Because realistically, you can't draw it up better than that. Gets Tom Brady, gets Gronkowski, gets Leonard Fournette. Wow. Antonio Brown before Antonio Brown had a mental breakdown, all right? Impressive stuff by a GM, okay? So then you lose Tom Brady, you win a Super Bowl, you go back to the NFC Championship game, lose that, make the playoffs again, lose there, and then you come back, you make the playoffs again with an entirely different quarterback, all right? A quarterback that everybody thought was dead in the water, all right? Mr. Baker Mayfield, guys. And he just showed what he was capable of last year, and he played tremendous football. I'm very proud of Baker and what he was able to accomplish. When I look at that, and I look at the success that we found without the pieces that we're about to add this team, I really find this team to be better off than it was 72 hours ago. Okay, period, the end. I'm very impressed with this team was able to go after as far as the draft is concerned, and especially with their undrafted free agents, and that would make the 3rd year in a row that I'm impressed with undrafted free agents. It just goes to show that like I said, there's so much talent out there, and that our GM, Jason Light, did not shy away from that, so I'm very proud of him and what he's been able to do. But enough of the giving him credit, and let's talk about what he actually did in the draft. Now, rounds 1 through 7, it's a B-. You add the undrafted free agents, it's an A. It's a B+. But if you add the undrafted free agents, it's an A-. Okay, guys. So let's go in it round by round. Round 1, Graham Barton, center, Duke. Okay, we got the best offensive lineman in the draft. You can, again, argue with your mother. This man plays 3 different positions. He was graded a perfect 10 out of 10. Okay? And we got him in the 1st round, guys. Absolute steal at 26. Wow, Graham, I can't wait to see you down there. He's going to come in. He's probably going to start right away at center. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't start at center. Wherever he does start, he's going to be a phenomenal ball player. I can't wait to see what he's able to do, and I look forward to seeing him ball out for Tampa Bay. Period, the end. He comes from a team that had a decent offensive line to begin with, and it just goes to show how effective he was in the trenches. Great quarterback that he had playing for him, but like I said, the quarterback is only as good as his offensive line. I mean, the only time that doesn't apply is if your name is Barry Sanders, and he played running back 40 years ago, all right? I think 40 years, yeah, 30 years ago. I'm sorry, 30 years ago. But you get what I'm saying, guys. Absolute stud up front in Graham Barton. Can't wait to see him produce. Second round, we go Chris Broswell. Outside linebacker, Alabama edge rusher. Guys, listen, you knew that was coming. We were going to have to go edge to get somebody on the opposite side of Yaya Diaby. Very happy with this pick. This is a kid that played in Alabama. Watch some Alabama. I know this kid's tape. I know what he's capable of. Very patient, very good with his hands. The only knock on this kid, literally the only thing he needs to work on is he needs to get bigger. His vision, his play reading, his football IQ, his ball speed, and his movement to the ball, all tremendous. Absolutely love this pick for Tampa Bay. This is a guy that could come in and actually split time starting. I wouldn't be surprised if he does grab a starting job, guys. Something else for you guys to pay attention to. For those of you who know who Alabama football, this guy is a stud, and he's absolutely going to bring the pain for Tampa Bay. Can't wait to see this guy play on Sundays as well. In the third round, the Bucks go ahead and they pick up Tiki Smith. He is defensive back / safety for Georgia. This guy's a ball hog. He's got a nose for the ball. This is a guy that can come in and also probably find himself starting at day one. I wouldn't be surprised, especially with the defensive back lineup that we have. If he plays very well in training camp, don't be surprised if you see him on the field within the first 2 or 3 weeks, guys. This is absolutely tremendous for Tampa Bay. We're going to have to shore up that cornerback position, and this is a way to do that by adding in Tiki Smith. Can't wait to see this guy ball out. He played at Georgia, got to see him. I think he made our life hell as a Florida Gator. So, guys, just be prepared for him to jump out on the screen. And he's very versatile, too. He can blitz from the nickel, and he can also fill back into coverage. And I've also seen him cover a tight end a couple of times. So, guys, look forward to seeing what he has to offer again on that defensive side of the ball. He's the type of player you would expect Todd Bowles to draft and then turn into a monster. All right, guys? So, just, like I said, look out for that. Can't wait to see how that turns out. Also in the third round, with our second third-round draft pick, we were able to get Jalen McMillan, wide receiver, University of Washington. Guys, Washington had an offense for the ages. Here's what my only issue was. If you watched that last game, you saw a lot of... how can I say this? You saw a lot of failed interaction. All right, University of Washington, as storied as the college has been over the last year or so, especially with Michael Penix Jr., what this team was able to accomplish, they absolutely crumbled in the ball game, and this is one of those things that when you see it happen, you feel really bad for the team, but you realize it started somewhere, and I'm not going to say it started with Michael Penix Jr. This man gave his team every opportunity to win. I think it started with the receivers. So I really hope that Jalen McMillan can come in and really learn from his experience in that ball game, learn from what the losses that he experienced and how bad it hurt, and apply that to the game and maybe find himself somewhere on the field on Sunday. Again, with the receiving core that we have here at Tampa Bay, I wasn't feeling like we needed to draft a receiver right away, but I do understand that we were going to need one. Obviously, everybody knows Mike Evans is getting older. He signed a 2-year deal. I don't know if that's a view on whether he wants to play 2 more years and then retire, or if he obviously wants to play 2 more years and then see where he's at and then keep going from there. I think that's more so what it is. I think he's got more than 2 years left in him. I think he's got about 5, to be honest with you, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does play another 5 years, guys. But nonetheless, Jalen McMillan, third round, pseudo fourth round pick, if you will, because we had a second, third round pick. But like I said, wide receiver at University of Washington, great choice there. Big body, good hands. He's just got to stay focused and not get rattled. Fourth round draft pick going Bucky Irving, running back, University of Oregon. There are some people that think this guy was the best running back in the draft. I thought it was Blake Corum, but I'm going to be honest with you guys. This is somebody that I did notice, that I did see. He is a human joystick out of the backfield. Great hands, great running ability, breaks tackles. I think he led the nation in broken tackles with 122 over the last 2 years, which is unheard of when you think about the fact that these are 11 season games, and unless you make it to the playoffs, nobody's really talking about you in the postseason. Guys, the Buccaneers got a great running back in Bucky Irving. This is a guy who's going to fit in perfectly for Tampa Bay. He's a smaller version of Rachaad White, but when you look at what Rachaad White is able to do and what he was able to do last year, guys, this is a great pick for Tampa Bay. I love it. I love it. I love it. Welcome, Bucky Irving. I think you found your home here. Elijah Clean, guard, UTEP, guys. Great choice in the 6th round here. When you talk about the amount of guards that have been selected, the number was actually relatively low in comparison to what it could have been, specifically speaking from the guard perspective, guys. So good job for the Bucks nabbing him in the 6th round. I think this is a guy that with some development can definitely find himself on the line. Our line isn't perfect yet, but it's getting there, and I think that this is a good step in that direction, because these players will push each other, and may the best player win. I've always been that kind of guy, and I'm still going to stand on that, guys. Again, Elijah Clean, that was the 6th round draft pick out of UTEP guard. 7th round draft pick is going to be Devin Culp, tight end, University of Washington. So we have 2 Washington guys. High flying attack. Like I said, it was stifled in the postseason, unfortunately. But I guess we can't really expect everything to go our way all the time, right? And I think that's the case for University of Washington. I think that was kind of their deal, what they kind of had to learn from in the playoffs last year. And, you know, hey, because of it, this franchise will get a lot more attention that they deserve, a lot more national spotlight. Like I said, this team played very, very well, and I thought that Michael Penix Jr. was a phenomenal quarterback for them last year, and I think that these guys kind of reap the benefits, and hopefully they're able to do so here with us in Tampa Bay. So that's what's going on for the rounds 1 through 7 draft pick, guys. But for the undrafted free agents, there are a couple of names that I want to identify to you as some really, really good pickups before I let you go this evening, okay? So first things first, these are all Buccaneers undrafted free agents. I'm going to tell you the ones that stand out to me. I'm going to tell you some other names. I'm going to tell you all the names in general, but then I'm going to highlight a few names, and we're going to do it like that, okay, guys? So here are the Bucs undrafted free agents. Defensive back Marcus Banks, Mississippi State. Defensive back Tyreek Funderburk, Appalachian State. Defensive tackle Judge Culpepper, Toledo. Guys, Judge Culpepper is Brad Culpepper, the former Buccaneers legend's son. All right, very important factor there for a lot of people to pay attention to, like father, like son, playing here at Tampa Bay. Welcome. Quarterback Zach Anakstad, Illinois State. Watched him play football twice last year. Not the most consistent guy. Has talent, but not the most consistent guy, for a heads up, guys. Okay. Linebacker Kalen DeLuche, Florida State. We're going to talk about him in a second. Okay. Guard Xavier Delgado, Missouri. Kind of a steal. Kind of a steal there. Safety Rashad Wisdom, UTSA. We're going to have to see more tape on this kid. All right, Sunbelt's not going to cut it. I need to know what he can do. We're going to have to see how he does in training camp and in OTAs. Rookie OTAs are going to be a big factor for him because, again, we do have probably the best safety tandem now in the league in Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. So we're going to be able to see if this guy can learn from both of those guys and find himself. And don't forget Christian Eisen, guy. Christian Eisen played tremendous last year for us, and that's another name for you guys to pay attention to moving into his second year. He was also an undrafted free agent last year, guys. Just some food for thought there. Avery Jones, center, Auburn. Great pick here, okay? Undrafted free agent. I can believe it. He's just got to stay healthy, guys, but this guy actually can ball. All right, saw him a little bit. He's just got to get his feet back into the trenches and get reacclimated to the game of football. He'll be good to go. So moving forward, offensive tackle, Nolan Porter, NIU. All right, so Northern Illinois University, I believe that is. Very, very, very small college. Don't have a lot of details on him. We'll have to wait and see what happens with him, okay? Edge rusher, Daniel Grisecki. I don't know that kid. He's out of Cincinnati, guys. I did not watch any Cincinnati football last year. I do apologize. Unfortunately, I did not, so I don't have any information on him. But I will dig some up, and I will get that to you next week, guys. Linebacker Antonio Greer, Arkansas, by way of USF. Actually, this guy can ball, guys. This guy can actually ball. It wasn't really an upgrade for him to go from USF to Arkansas, but for a little bit it was. Unfortunately, he just didn't get the national recognition that he should have received. But this guy can actually ball. Again, Antonio Greer there. Running back DJ Williams, FSU, and he also went to Arizona. Guys, this guy can ball. Okay, this is an actual really good pickup right here for the Bucs at DJ Williams. I can't speak on that enough, so I'm going to highlight him again one more time, and I'm going to give you the last name. The last name is going to be cornerback Chris McDonald from Toledo. Chris McDonald from Toledo did not play a whole bunch of games in the national spotlight, but I believe he's actually a really good talent. For those of you who watched Toledo, they actually had a buzz going on last year for a little bit, and I think it was in large part due to that defense, which we were able to nab 2 of the players from that team. So, guys, again, just some quick food for thought for you guys as far as these rookie players to watch coming out of Tampa Bay, okay? Marcus Banks is an absolute steal as an undrafted free agent. Judge Culpepper, if he plays anything like his father did, he's going to be absolutely fundamental to this team's success. Tariq Funderburk, App State. Guys, if he turns out to be a good football player, don't be surprised to see him because we needed cornerbacks and we actually low-key went after a couple of them, okay, guys? Keelan DeLuche at Florida State was an absolute steal as an undrafted free agent. That makes 2 absolute steals for sure. Safety Rashad Wisdom, like I said, he's learning behind 2 of the very best safeties that are in the league at the moment. Guys, we'll have to wait and see how that pans out, but I think this guy's in a great position to be successful. Xavier Delgado, another steal as an undrafted free agent. This guy played on a Missouri offensive line that really helped bolster their run attack and keep their quarterback safe. That's something that you don't really pay attention to because they're in the SEC, but if you take them out of the SEC and put them somewhere else, they become twice as successful. Argue with your mother, the SEC is the most difficult conference in football, and it has been for the last 40 years. Running back DJ Williams, absolute steal out of FSU, Florida State. If he can stay healthy, again, he's going to be a monstrous player for Tampa Bay, and I look forward to seeing what he's able to accomplish for this team, and he will definitely find himself playing football on Sundays with this team. And then Chris McDonald at Toledo. This guy, like I said, was one of the better defensive players that they had there at Toledo for this past season. I think that this team really did amazing. When you look at the undrafted free agents, again, without the undrafted free agents, they get a B minus. With the a B plus, my bad. With the undrafted free agents, they get an A plus, or maybe just or A minus, or maybe just an A in general. But guys, listen, I gotta send you guys on your way. All right, and I appreciate you for joining me here on Palm Tree Sports Radio. My name has been Corey Poole, your host, and as always, is brought to you by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Guys, I really hope I was able to shed a light on some of these draft prospects. I know I kind of sped it up a little bit, but thank you guys for rocking with me. I really hope, like I said, I got you some new information. In the meantime, between time, guys, have a wonderful week. I pray nothing but safety and happiness over you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here. I'll see you here same time, same place next week, Sunday evening, 9 p.m. Can't wait to see you there. Guys, like I said, when I get some more details, I'll share them with you. Until then, it's been my pleasure, and I'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week, guys. Peace.